Okay, let's start. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen. Today we have two subjects. We are talking about, we have two paper. The reason I post two paper is I'm not sure how much interest in koan. Okay, so that's why I post two, So if I don't know, if I have a lot of interest, we have to split the two section. But roughly, I will spend the first hour talking about koan, and then second half, second hours, we can talk about the Westernized Buddhism of the second another paper. So that's the way we can have all discussion. Okay, so last week we talked about I Ching, the Book of Change, and this week we changed to the Western Buddhism, Zen Koan, and so the paper. This paper also the author also compared with Socrates, and that's the place to discuss. And next week we are going to talk about the book from Sun Tzu, Art of War. A lot of people talk about this. And the book, it doesn't have a lot. So again, we just do a quick review on this one. And then I will going to add the so-called 36 stratagems on this one. That's a very popular subject. So we can go through, not all 36, but we get some people interest. Then the end of August, and Pin is going to have a history of Chinese philosophy. I believe he will make a presentation on this one. And then today is our third time to talk about Buddhism. So I think we talked about the Heart Sutra before, and then we also talk about the Zen, a general idea of Buddhism about 2 months ago. So I think we probably have still have a lot to talk about Buddhism. But in September, I plan to go back to Confucius. Okay, so we're going to read some Analects, and then we probably will do the Tao Te Ching reading. That's our general schedule. And every Saturday, 1 o'clock in Pacific time, or 4 o'clock in Eastern time, we're going to hear, and we are going to do different subjects. Before I go that, since I don't know everybody notice the difference, the change of the meetup page, and as a host, I'm a little bit frustrated, and then I'm being posted in different place. So right now I decide to create a place, my own place. So please sign up here. So because I'm afraid today's business model is a little bit strange. Like me, I always post in different group, not Chicago group, Portland group, Seattle group, and different group. So kind of become like a homeless host. So today I'm going to put another my own group. So from now on I will post. I will still post on different group, but I also will post on this group. So in this case, I believe one day meetup will stop this kind of model. You will not, because I kind of feel like we are taking advantage of meetup, because without paying any money and post all over the place. So I just have to make sure it's prepared. So next time, if you can sign up here, they will, make sure, if meetups change the business model, and then you still see the information. But again, I will still post it in different place. Please.
Jason, should we do a search and meetup for the World Philosophy Group or for Asian philosophy?
I think I will put this one and in the chat. So you just sign up for next week, and you will be there, and it'll be better. But if
terrific, thank you.
Yeah, it's like I'm not going to cut off or anything. And again, I have no interest to. Let me see. I have no interest to like own a group or something like this. Only thing I want to do is make sure we have a place to discuss, and the people are interested can continue. That's what I want to do. So I put this one. Please sign up for next week if you are interested. But if you are used to sign up in other place and you are happy with other thing, that's fine. No, I have no. And another thing I'd like to talk about a little is when you sign up. I think a lot of people concerned about our schedule, and I think I received a message. Someone want to talk about the Yangzhu, who is the Chinese egoism, and then so something like this. Please let me know, and I will try to schedule. So the way to do it is on each meetup page, you will see this document. If you click, you will go to it take a while. You will go to this spreadsheet. Okay, so I will list all the past and the future schedule here. You can see it, and if you have a concern, you have suggestion, just let me know. And all the PowerPoint, meetup page, and video, recorded video is there. It's a little bit, disorganized. I'm still working on that, but I decided to share it with everybody now, so you can have an idea where we are. Yeah. So before we start, Pin, you have something to say?
Just quick question. I understand you set up a repository of all the past reading material and videos. I somehow when you shared that, I must have missed it. I was wondering if you could share that link again.
So share the.
I think you set up a vault, right, or a repository where.
Yeah, I just use
your archive.
Yeah. Yeah, I just use Google. Just use Google Drive, and I to share with everybody. That's it. I didn't create the archive.
Yeah, but can you tell me the link for that? Like, how do I get there?
Okay, the link is here. The link is on the page. If you go to the page.
Okay.
Meetup page at the end, right? So here's this is the follow link for future meetup and the reading. So basically it's all there. So okay, so if it's not there, that means I probably forget to put there. Just send a note to me, then I will add them over there.
Oh, okay. So that link, because I think before when I clicked on that link, it took me to the spreadsheet, but I couldn't see.
Yeah, it's a spreadsheet. Yes, it's a spreadsheet. It's a spreadsheet. That's I just show. It's a spreadsheet like this. Okay. So it's not like.
Oh, okay. But in the spreadsheet, there are links to the actual reading material and whatnot. Okay, I get it.
So in the version you have the date, but before I didn't organize, and I don't have time to go back to do everything. But when I have time, I will do it, and then I will add on this one, and you will see this week. Okay, is Buddhism in West, and I put title, the reading material meetup page, PowerPoint. And next week, and I haven't organized yet, but you will see the reading material and something like September 4th. I plan to do analog, okay, and analytics, and then talk about benevolence, Ren, and that's the reading material. It may change, but that's like temporary do it. And if I formalize, I will put in the meetup page. So,
how about recordings of these Zoom sessions?
It's
here.
Links? It's here. Okay, that's a YouTube.
In the YouTube. Oh, the YouTube link out to the Zoom.
Okay. So you can take a look, and sometimes it's late because we all volunteer. So sometimes I forget. Sometimes I'm busy, so not doing that. So that's the reason. So that's any other question? Otherwise, we can start for today's session.
It's me, Philip.
Oh, Philip, hi.
One possibility for this group to come together and talk about these issues, it is our own virtual philosophy network Discord, right? That's a common place for a community to talk about this issue. Also, if you guys are interested, you can come to my group, which is the Philosophers and Gamblers group. My group was the initial group that started this Asian philosophy. So you can, if you guys are interested, you can come to the meetup page events for this page. There's plenty of people of places to. I think that going forward, I think that we have a community that's meeting every single week. So I think it's just trying to get that community to be in one central location where you guys can learn about these things throughout the whole week and talking about these things. I think that should be the thing going forward.
Yeah, thank you, Pim. Thank you, Phillips. Yeah. So this group is original start from the philosophy and the gamblers. Okay. So Phillips, you can put the link over the chat so everybody can go there.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's,
I created the new group. The reason is last Monday, the meetup give me a hard time, so a lot of things I cannot get in, and I realized, lots of the time, I have to set up a new group. Otherwise, one day they change the model, you will have some problem. So I said, look, so please keep what you are doing now, and then I just let everybody know. That's the group.
Sure,
I will.
Yeah. No problem.
Okay, let's start. And I think since that's the third time we do it, we just do the quick review on the Buddhism. It's called the Buddhism ABC. Okay, so we have no. Make sure everybody have a common ground. So basically, we can roughly say Buddhism has three schools. Okay, Mahayana school. Okay, or Theravada school, of so-called the Vajrayana school, which is in India, in Tibet. Okay, Dalai Lama. Okay, and today we talk about Zen. Basics in belong to Mahayana school, but in West, probably a lot of people know Zen more than others. Just like Elena talked about this, it could be biased, okay, because Zen has less religion flavor on that. It could be a little bit biased, but I just present what these two papers is talking about, and that means there's nothing else. They still have a lot of things, and then if you are interested, please bring up to discuss. And then we have a few key terms just to make sure everybody have understanding, basic understanding. Okay, I think I showed this one before. Okay, first, the Buddha means the awakened one. Okay, so who have the Buddha is not God, it's a so-called awakened one. And then the name Zen actually is Japanese. In Chinese called Chan. Okay, and the Indian Sanskrit called Dhyana or Jhana or Shana. I don't know how to pronounce it, but basic meaning is meditation. But the meditation has a different meaning. Okay, so we probably not doing too much on this today, but that's the basic. And another thing is koan. Okay, koan also Japanese. That's called that's some riddle story, some short story. If you read the paper, you probably have an idea what is koan. And then, so today's section, we will start with the first paper, talk about Socrates and Zen, and then we will start from koan. Okay, so that's today's schedule. And then, any question or any comment? Anybody want to have a comment? That's the time before we start the koan. We will start the koan first, and then we talk about the Western Buddhism. No? Okay, so let's start. Okay, let's read the first koan. Okay, talk about the path to knowledge. Nani, a Japanese master during the Meiji era, received a university professor who come to inquire about Zen. Nani served tea. He poured his visitor cup full and then kept on pouring. The professor watched the overflow until no longer could restrain himself, and it is over full. No more will go on. Like this cup, Nani said, you are full of your own opinion and the speculation. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup? I think that's probably a very famous one, and it's easy to understand. And like David said, the second one, I like to put these two together. Okay, a 12 years old Toyo. Okay, it's a Sikh enlightenment from Makurai. Okay, the head monk at his local temple. Finally, Makurai agreed and see Toyo in the monk's instruction room. So he asked him, what is the sound of one hand clipping? Okay, so basically it's talk about the soundless sound. Okay, so this one, I think the author kind of related to Socrates' aporia. Okay, and then he talked about Socrates' Eusebio and Meno. Okay, so Eusebio, if you know, just a quick, Eusebio is when Socrates is waiting for a trial. Eusebio is the religious expert, and then he tried to prosecute his father because his father let a slave die. So there's a long conversation, but basics, the most famous question Socrates asked is something pious because God approve of it, or does God approve of it because it is pious? That's what the famous question Socrates asked. So kind of like, that's my opinion, kind of this paper is talking about Socrates' way, Socrates' path to knowledge, Socrates' way of teaching is similar to what Koan, okay, is trying to do. So Ron, please.
Yes, I'm just going to mention briefly the first story about the teacup. Relating it to Socrates, the story was the Delphic oracle said that Socrates was the wisest man in Athens because he was the only one who knew that he didn't know. Oh. And the other point is in Zen, they talk about beginner's mind. And the idea of beginner's mind is you have to start with that same attitude of not knowing. If you know, it's like the full teacup already. So I would like maybe a little discussion about the practicality of that, because we all think we have a certain backlog of quote experiences and knowledge that we always bring to the table, and how difficult it is in practice to come with a beginner's mind.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, yeah, Claudia.
Yeah, I agree with Ron. It could have a double meaning. One is to begin with a clean slate, right? Because we're all we all have our own biases, our own preconceptions of reality, right? And we all interpret things. It all goes back to our childhood, of course, and our environment. So in order to achieve this superior knowledge, enlightenment, you have to try to suppress that. Or it could have, the other meaning could be as meditation, right? Because when you meditate, when you become enlightened, you meditate, you have to empty your mind, correct? That's how you reach enlightenment, through meditation. So I'm not sure which route to take. I don't know if it even has a double meaning, or it could just be referring to the former or the latter, what Ron said, or meditation. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. David, please.
Well, I think it'd be impossible to empty your mind, and it's not wise, but to suspend your knowledge in order to appreciate a new system might be the way to go, using meditation or whatever method is necessary, but not to prejudge or condemn upon first hearing based on your prejudice. Thank you.
Thank you, David. James and Leah. James.
I think I agree with David to the extent that this is a little bit like when you're learning about quantum theory.
Yeah.
So in other words, the old physics goes out the door and you have to adopt a number of other paradigms at the same time. And so Zen is very much in that fashion. And there's even this kind of like call to empty your mind entirely in order to be able to create perfect visions of what it is to be human in a simple sense. In other words, get rid of all of the pre-assumptions, get rid of all of the or presuppositions, get into a state of total alignment with your body and privacy. So I think this is part of the Buddhist experience, is this alignment with the body, privacy, and emptying your current state of awareness of all pre-knowledge. So that's where I would sort of like differ. I would go along with the Buddhists in that sense. It is possible. It has something to do with just breathing, just being, just just being in a zero state, trying to achieve a zero state before proceeding. And that doesn't mean that you forget everything that you've ever learned. That only means that your current activity involves a zero, conditions that resemble a zero state.
Yeah, thank you, James. Then Dia, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just feel like, I don't know, I disagree. I don't think it's possible to empty your mind as such. I think it's possible to separate your ego or watch your ego from your mind and come through with Zen with more of a pure state, so that you can take in a teaching of a more of a truer essence, rather than your conditioning or what you've been told that you must think. I don't know. I can't see how anybody could empty their mind. I think we can empty or watch our ego so that we can learn something new. Otherwise, it's just a block. And I just open for thoughts on that.
Well, thank you, Dia. We at least we have some disagree on this, but that's fine. Okay. Tai and Tai, please.
Hey, I'm just figuring this stuff out. All right. So much has happened, or so much has been said. I guess I have multiple points. The first is, I tend to agree more with Leah insofar as you can bifurcate the ego. You can't necessarily dissolve knowledge. And that's to say, for instance, when someone said clean slate, I immediately translated that to tabula rasa, because in college that's what you're taught. And secondly, I would probably argue that I don't think that meditation is the only way to enlightenment. I think it's certainly a component. And I think we sort of gloss through the Noble Truths. And that is to say, my most recent epiphany with regard to the Noble Truths is that, the whole notion of that all life is suffering and it's caused by desire. Well, in different periods of our lifetime, we define desire differently. And I would just probably argue that if you're really trying to seek enlightenment, that you sort of clean up like anything that might inhibit like the ingredients necessary for life. And that is to say, we learned in first grade what plants need to survive: water, sun, compassion, that kind of stuff. So, if your air is polluted, or if your food is not healthy, then I don't think meditation can help you. And really, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Tai. Yeah, thank you for reminding. Actually, today our subject, or this moment our subject is Zen, and it doesn't mean Zen is the only way to get enlightenment. Okay, so it's many ways, and because today our subject is Zen. Okay, so thank you for reminding. And even in Zen itself, they have the two schools. If you remember, or if you know some Zen, they have at least roughly in China will be the Northern Zen and the Southern Zen. Okay, and in Japan they have the also two schools, basics. One is for the sudden enlightenment. Another one is for the gradual enlightenment. You need to practice, and then so it's many ways to do it. So, Pin, please.
Hi, I think by reading somewhat similar to Leah's, to me the passage never said anything about empty. It's interesting how we kind of jump to that. The purpose is to not to be so full and conceited that you and close-minded that you don't acquire new knowledge or insight anymore. So to me, it's vacate yourself enough to, it doesn't have to be some kind of extreme pure state of emptiness. You just clear enough room to absorb new views and insights, and the more you can clear out, maybe the more you can receive. And to me, perhaps being insistent on achieving some kind of ideal state of emptiness or pureness, that is being full in itself, and that is in itself some kind of conceivableness.
Thank you, Pin. Who is next? Phil and James.
Yeah, I have a practical metaphor that I actually lived through, because for many years, through my teaching, I went from school to school. And because I didn't want to spend the money to hire moving vans every year, what I did was I empty my car, so to speak, okay, in this sense, right? Because the conflict really is between the unlimited possible knowledge and the limited mind that you have. So therefore, I just simply see every year toss out the excess to make room for the new possibilities. So the opening is not to fully empty it, is to create the clearing for possibilities to enter the conversation, to enter the collection of intellect. So I do not believe I do not like every year throw away everything, but I do throw away enough to make room for the new thing. So when I go to a new place, it can start over again and then recycle itself in that sense. I think that's what it means, to create the clearing for possibilities to happen. That's what emptiness is. And so the degree to you as an advice is to, how much clearing should I create to allow this eternal becoming to take place, because becoming is not the same as being.
All right, thank you, Phil. Thank you for the suggestion. Madeline, please.
Yes, thank you, Jason. I looked up aporia or aporia. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And the etymology was quite interesting.
Yeah.
A means without, basically. And poria is the same root word as pour, and it means an opening or a passageway. So a koan, and it's quite interesting that Jason put the two together, that a koan, say like the sound of one hand clapping, is something that has no passageway in the way that we are used to thinking about things. And so when we have the full cup in our mind, I don't know, I can see how these two panels go together, the full cup and the sound of one hand clapping. So without the empty cup, without the entire speculative and cognitive system, if we're using our regular cognitive system, we are going to be looking at something that has no passageway. And there's an entirely different way in that doesn't involve our normal way of thinking. And that's what the koans are designed to break open.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, two things like here. When I many years ago, when I first time read Plato's dialogue, and I realized the aporia, and my first reaction is Zen. Okay, so I try to discuss with other people. Is Zen enlightenment or the koan? But I try to discuss with the peer, and then of course they don't know koan, so it's difficult, and that's why I put in this one here, and I see them have a connection. But and another thing I'd like to remind everybody is koan is not designed to have an answer. So basics, a lot of time you read it, the story just stick in your mind and probably forever. So once a while you bring up and you may have a different idea. So that's my experience. Ron, please.
Yeah, I'll just mention very briefly, when I spoke, I just kind of grabbed the first words that came to mind. So, I just recently had read about Zen beginner's mind, and it seemed to be a good description of it. I don't think I ever actually mentioned emptying the mind or being totally without ideas, but whatever. The last thing I just want to mention is one of my favorite quotes is goes like this. It says, "The ability to change your mind is proof that you still have one." And I love that quote because that's what I was trying to get at. As long as you're in a state of the ability to change your mind, to be open, I think that was really what I was, really trying to express. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Phil, please.
Yeah, I want to ask this question to Jason. If a koan is something that sticks in your mind as if you can never forget it, is that itself a koan? Because in this sense, it's a contradiction, because if you can't get rid of it, it fills up the thing, and pretty soon your mind is just full of koans. There's no clearing for the emptiness to take place. Maybe that's why he keeps pouring the tea into the cup. So could you answer that? Unless it itself is also a koan on itself, then there's a funny contradiction there.
I will answer your question, okay, in a very personal way. Okay, so I see everything as a koan. Every story I read as koan, and I also a big fan of Nietzsche. Okay, so Nietzsche, one thing I like is Nietzsche talk about the life is experiment. He is experimentalist. Okay, so basics everything. If you fail or you are successful, I don't care. Basics, everything is a koan. Everything is a lesson I need to learn. So that's the way I live on my life. So thank you for asking me this. And I'm not speaking as a Zen master or any Buddhism point of view. I just said as a person point of view. Thank you. Any other thing to discuss for these two koan? And then we have Fred, please.
There's been some emphasis on emptying your mind and the concern of filling your mind with koans or replacing our thoughts with koans and whether it's possible, empty your mind and so forth. And I think what's perhaps missing here is the Buddhist doctrine of Anata, which is which holds that the self is an illusion. And a lot of the practice of meditation is to come to that realization. And the idea being that if you just start plucking ideas or memes out of your mind in a systematic way, what you're left with is nothing or emptiness. And that's the motivation for the Buddhist notion that the mind is an illusion, because if you take away our sort of transitory thoughts and cultural memes and prejudices and so forth, that there's nothing left. And so the approach is, it seems, is not so much to have a right mind or a good mind or an empty mind, but a recognition that that all this clutter in our minds is illusory, and that the mind itself is an illusion. It seems to me that's the fundamental principle of Anata in Buddhism, which we haven't really discussed much.
Thank you, Fred. We have Dia and Ron, please. Dia. Dia, you are mute.
There. Okay,
Okay.
so I like what Fred said, but I'm just wondering, in my mind, I feel that the thoughts I have, sometimes they're very, very busy. And when I sit in meditation, I try my very best to calm the thoughts. So just to have one thought at a time. I can have multiple thoughts at a time. And it's very busy. But I feel that the koan, I think that it probably would help to stop the busy mind. So I would just think about the koan and everything would go quiet. Is that the purpose of the koan? Is that my mind would then come still and quiet and help it to become sort of empty.
So are you asking a question to the group?
Yeah, to the group.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and then, but you may not get a good answer. So
Oh, that's okay.
probably that's the purpose. And one thing I know is so-called emptiness. Another discussion on this is have a different kind of meaning, and then I have been contemplate this kind of idea. So, so emptiness. If you remember, or you were in the Heart Sutra reading. You also talk about the emptiness itself is a form, right? So if you talk about empty your mind, the emptiness itself is also something. So that's the dilemma you have to resolve. So that's enough. So no more discussion on this one. So otherwise we move on.
I was going to put in an answer to Leah. Just the I think generally philosophically, our presuppositions always need to be reanalyzed. So I don't believe that there's any presuppositions in general, whether they're religious or philosophical or of any kind, that should always be allowed to stand as preconditions for thinking. So this emptying of the mind is exactly in line with that concept. If you wish to re-examine all of your presuppositions, then you're willing to go to that as pure as possible. I don't want to start any old arguments. As pure as possible state of mental self-investigation. So that's where the two concepts, I think, are very merged. The concept of having knowledge and questioning knowledge, all the way back to the question of having a sense of self and then questioning the sense of self and the flow of information in self, in mind. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, James. Nathaniel, thank you. Please.
Thanks. The only thing I noticed about the first paper was he was saying that, like, in the East there was this kind of mystical tradition, but there's a mystical tradition in the West too. Christian mysticism does exist with guys like Meister Eckhart and the Cloud of Unknowing. It's definitely not as prominent, I think, in the West as it has been in the East, but it does exist. And the other thing I was thinking was, like he was saying, we've been trained to like have lots of arguments for things, but maybe like the emptiness of the mind can't be argued into. It has to be experienced or something. So it's something that's only experienced, not like there's no argument that can get you to understand. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Yeah, I think that's why it's difficult to describe and difficult to put in the text, and that's the reason. Probably that's the reason they put in the koan. And I just another thing I'd like to remind everybody is today I showed the koan. It's all Japanese koan. Okay, so in Chinese tradition have a different kind. Well, a lot of these koan are borrowed from China, but Chinese tradition then have different set of koan. So one day I might bring Chinese koan and to compare with Japanese koan. There's a little bit slightly different focus. It's hard to explain, but we will get there if we have a chance. So we have let's go to David, Phil, and Lindsay.
I have something on Is That So? If you're ready to go.
Okay, so
The next koan.
okay, so Phil, please. Phil. Phil, are you there? You're gone. Well, you are muted. Phil.
I wonder if the incompleteness theorem is a koan because it tells you that you cannot give an answer. However, it is paradoxical because it's giving you an answer that you cannot answer. In other words, itself is an answer. The fact that you cannot answer it itself is already an answer. So I wonder if that's a contemporary manifestation of a koan, because it's certainly, on the one hand, shut down the intellect, but by shutting down the intellect, it is an intellectual pronouncement. So that's kind of interesting. It's a curiosity. I'm not claiming it is, but if Zen is transformed by the West, isn't that also a curious transformation of the koan?
Yeah, another thing I'd like to mention is the koan here, and I probably selected the one I think it's easy. They have some are totally nonsense. Okay, so I probably will show next time. It's I don't know because it's nonsense by itself, or I'm not enlightened enough to get a sense of that. So I probably will show next time. Lindsay, please.
Yeah, I've just got one comment on the previous koan, not the one that you've got on the screen right now. Just the last sort of what I was getting here. Socrates' mission, if you will, was to sort of demonstrate that what people thought they knew with a certain certainty, they really didn't know at all. And that's what a lot of the dialogues are all about. And that's how he ties them in knots. And I don't think that this particular koan is a call to meditation or, emptying your mind completely, because you've made a good comparison here, I think, that you have to realize that you don't know what you think you know. And once you achieve that state, then you're open to listen and maybe then meditate on what you are hearing or what you are now being exposed to with more of an open mind, because you can catch your preconceptions as they come up. That's what I think this is about.
Thank you, Lindsay. I think you are very right, because here is not talking about meditation, and not talking about, and a lot of people talk about meditation. That means you have not empty your mind. You have the preconception of meditation about Zen, and by reading this one. So thank you for reminding us. So David.
Are you ready to go to?
Okay, so do you mind to read this one?
Yes.
Please.
Let's see.
Can you see it?
Is that so?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, the master, one of the ideas of Socrates offers in the apology would have been greeted by astonishment by the jurors and spectators at his trial. I do not believe he says that the law of God permits a better man to be harmed by a worse. Socrates was no doubt making a barbed comment about his accusers here, but we can also understand this remark in a deeper way. The Zen story, Is That So, can help. The Zen master Hakin was praised by his neighbors as one living a pure life. A beautiful Japanese girl whose parents owned a food store lived near him. Suddenly, without any warning, her parents discovered she was with child. This made her parents angry. She would not confess who the man was, but after much harassment, at last named Hakin. In great anger, the parents went to the master. Is that so? Was all he would say. After the child was born, it was brought to Hakin. By this time, he had lost his reputation, which did not trouble him. But he took very good care of the child. He obtained milk from his neighbors and everything else the little one needed. A year later, the girl mother could not stand it no longer. She told her parents the truth, that the real father of the child was a young man who worked in the fish market. The mother and father of the girl at once went to Hakin to ask his forgiveness, to apologize at length, and to get the child back. Hakin was willing. In yielding the child, all he said was, is that so? Hakin is pure in his self-knowledge. What other people think of him is no consequence. Similarly, Socrates knows that he is innocent of the charges against him, and he certainly doesn't care how he is regarded by others. My question for the group is, this first statement here, Hakin is secure in his knowledge. Is that a form of pride? Which would be a negative. He's prideful in his self-awareness, self-knowledge, that he doesn't care what the community thinks. Is that a pride in there and that therefore a negative? Thank you.
Thank you for reading, and thank you for the question. I never think about this question, so yeah, that's great question. We have Ty and James.
Yeah, I don't think it's a sense of pride whatsoever. I think it's just a fact. Like, he knows he's not the father of the child. And a couple other things. Just, I love these koans. I think the story is beautiful, and honestly, I think it's like, in its 3 words, it's so profound insofar as the only thing that matters is this child get taken care of. The craziness, like, whatever you guys want to say about anything, it's just silly. So he took care of the kid. I thought it was lovely. No, I don't think he was prideful. I think he knew he wasn't the father. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, Hakuin. Okay, Hakuin is a famous Zen master in Japanese history. So I will have more about his story. Okay, I'm not sure this story is true or not true, but Hakuin is a true Zen master in the Japanese Zen history. So James.
Yeah, I don't think this is a question of pride at all. I think what motivates it's a koan about what motivates human behavior, and what is the relationship of the human person to the truth. And Hakuin may have been very well aware that the truth was not that he was related to the child. He was more aware of his self-truth, and his self-truth was his compassion, and that if he was being slandered, then there was a judgment to be made about the slander, which was going to be more relevant to him than the himself and his nature, his compassionate nature, than it was to the slander, the slander itself. And he realized that the only way to compare, to be able to assuage the slander, was to show his compassion, even though it meant the diminishment of his reputation. So that explains his behavior, and it was not a question of pride at all, but a question of showing that the nature of the individual is to be true to oneself and not to not to live in a state of contradiction, which is what happens whenever there is slander. And when there is slander, you have the possibility of having to live through a state of contradiction. It's always best to remove the contradiction. The Koan teaches us it's not always best to remove the contradiction and exhibit your own nature as truly as you can through that public state of slander and contradiction. So in other words, he's being a model here, and it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful koan with a beautiful ending. So I don't think pride comes into the story at all.
All right, thank you, James. Next one is Lindsay, please. Lindsay.
Lindsay, you're muted.
I don't think pride is involved at all here. He has I don't know if he's actually achieved some sort of state of enlightenment or not, but he doesn't give a hoot and a holler what anybody thinks about him. He's going to live his life the way he has decided he should be living it. If they're going to come and say that he's the father of the child, then he will take the child. He's not going to get into an argument with him. He's reached this state of accepting what is coming his way and not caring what other people think about him. And then when they reveal that the father is actually someone else and they wanted the child back, he was willing to do that as well, because these things, these concerns and blaming and all of it didn't concern him. He would just get through the day without worrying about what anybody was thinking or accusing him of. So that's that.
Thank you, Lindsay. We have Alex here. She haven't speak yet. So okay, so I let her speak first. I always let her the first time.
So sorry. Hi, Jason.
Alex, yeah, please.
I want to say I think when in Buddhism, I believe as well as in Zen, your reputation, your money, your status, in Buddhism, all that is the so-called like the almost like the alternate universe. If you're a Buddhist, if you're a Zen, practice Zen, all those things, your reputation, your whatever it is, that does not matter in Buddhism as well as in Zen, because those things are not, really the things that you practice. You don't care about those things. In Buddhism, your focus really is about enlightenment, and those things, reputation or that kind of things that we strive for in life, is really does not matter. So it's not really about that he was a nice guy or he was compassionate. I think, of course, compassionate, but I think he received this child as what the natural, as what it happens. He just received it. Because my background is Chinese, so I feel that this is more of like a chance happens. Something happens and you just take it as it is. So I'm not sure if, you know, if we're reading too much into this. I think it's a very simple story that just tells, you know, that something happens, he receives it as a chance happen, as you know, as because it just happens, and he doesn't really care about his reputation, because none of that really matters in the world of Buddhism. If you start thinking about your reputation or money and things like that, you're not really in the department of Buddhism or Zen. Those things don't matter, and that's what, you know, that's how people can meditate and for a long time and come to their conclusions, you know, without these, you know, worrying about these other things. And because all these things, such as reputation, money, celebrity status, your education, whatever, those things are considered in Buddhism as negative influences to your meditation, to your self, you know, your discovery to self, your path to enlightenment. So anyway, I just want to point that out. I'm not expert. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. We have a lot of hands up. So look, guys, a lot of people got enlightened. So next one will be Pin, please.
My point, I think, is very similar to Alex's, and invoking something that Fred said earlier. All these things are illusions to a true Buddhist. Reputation, the baby itself, truth. It's all illusions. These things come and go up to people's perceptions, interpretations. So to hakuin, you know, it's all an illusion. Truth is not relevant. Thank you.
Thank you, Pin. You know, I just like share this one because 3 weeks ago, Pin made a presentation about the autumn flood. I don't know everybody, the people tend to catch the sentence or not. That's the sentence I think is extremely important to me. Okay, he said that I put it here: the rank and the reputation of the world are not to him are to him no cause for joy, and its punishment and the shame is no cause for disgrace. So I take this one as very seriously. I think that's I get it from the Zhuangzi's presentation 2-3 weeks ago when he made this one, and I think that's exactly match to what Hakuin is doing, you know, in this koan. So next one should be Pin. No, Pin's down. Adia, please. Thank you for waiting.
Oh, actually, I lowered my hand, but that's okay. I just thought there were a lot of people wanting to talk. So my just a quick thought was, is that so? It was a question that the master asked the parents twice. And I think it's, to me, I'm looking at this rather metaphorically, is that sometimes from the outside, whatever, we have a thought, and I think metaphorically, I think it's important to, we could be disturbed. And of course, these two things were very disturbing to the master. And we need to question our thoughts that are disturbing. Is that so? It's a perception. We have faulty perception because we have conditioning that's been drilled into us, ego, and I feel that this koan, it explains that perhaps we need to question, is that so?
Thank you, Alina. So who is Dia? Thank you, Dia. Fred, please.
Just to step back and take a somewhat of a more of a bird's eye view of this koan and this discussion about the influence of Buddhism on Western society. I mentioned that I'm a mainstream Christian who has the greatest respect for and interest in in Buddhism and feels like it resonates and embellishes a lot of Christian thought. And this koan is one example in that there's a direct parallel in Christianity when Pilate asks Jesus whether he is the king of the Jews, and Jesus responds, "Thou hast said so." He could have said no, the truth, and chances are he would have been let off. That would be the easy way, in the same way that this master could have said no, but who would believe him? Who would care? Things will play out as they will. And Alex's observation is also spot on about wealth and reputation as a distraction, and has obvious direct parallels with Christianity. Yet another one is, I can, as a mainstream Christian, the doxology is effectively a mantra, and there are many others, but I thought that this koan in particular strikes me as very relevant to Christianity, which is, the influence of Buddhism on Western civilization.
Thank you, Fred. Yeah, I just like to remind we have many hands up. I just remind everybody about the time, but it's no means to rush. But okay. Who's next? Let's go to Phil, please.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the story itself. I do have a problem with the form. Since human beings receive so much about their knowledge through appearances, we live in a world of appearances. I think the form itself was not pure enough because it creates a lot of distraction. I mean, for instance, why a beautiful girl? Would it make a difference if it's like he was living next door to this ugly girl? I mean, and she gave a birth to a very ugly baby. In other words, we would have a completely different, askew interpretation of his virtue, his adherence to the truth. So therefore, he should have found some other way to express the path of truth, rather than the mirage of creating the appearance that we could understand, but nonetheless, it emphasizes the appearance rather than the realities. So the form, not the content. The content is perfectly fine, but the form itself creates a parallax that you're trying to get rid of the illusions, but you are reinforcing the illusion.
Well, thank you, Phil, to bring up the form, and then you may run into more problems than the next one. I have proof that that's what I'm saying. That's a Japanese Zen. There's a more beautiful girl. Okay, Chinese Zen probably has no beautiful girl. So next time, let me make sure.
Jason, if I could just interject critically, if the girl had been from a poor family and was not attractive, would anybody have cared? Just seeing it from a more current perspective, I really don't think and even at that time, I don't think it would have mattered. That's why she's a beautiful girl.
Well, I think I personally, I would say the Zen, probably especially the Japanese Zen, is designed for the audience. Probably most are men, right? So they kind of use this one as metaphor. That's my understanding. But in the Chinese Zen, I probably don't see much about beautiful girl. But in Japanese Zen, koan, I do see a few talk about beautiful girl. So yeah. So let's continue. Who's next? Alina, please. Alina.
Okay. Well, since Phil brought up form, I was actually wondering about why the girl pinned it on the master. Was she certain that he wasn't gonna, he wasn't gonna come out with the truth? That was just something that occurred to me when Phil brought it up. So yeah, but my observation on this koan is that the master, it seems to me like that he's doing the wu-wei, the Lao Tzu wu-wei, because he's just doing nothing here. He's he's accepting the situation, and I mean, what can he do? He can deny it, but that won't help him. So kind of like the water metaphor, he's just there doing what's right, what's natural, what's his nature to do. And yeah, to me, it's a question of way. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Next one is Lindsay, please.
Yeah, I think that I don't see anywhere near the complications that everybody else is seeing in this thing. The more I've thought about this and listened to what's coming at me here, I think that this is simply an illustration of what non-attachment to the things of this world means. If he's being given the baby, well, okay, he's going to be given the baby. And then in the end, when they take the baby back, he has not attached himself to the child. He is willing to let the baby go, and which is exactly what he does. And he just says, is that so? As if you are thinking, whatever you're thinking, I am not attached to this situation. That's all I think is going on here.
Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah. I don't know anybody speak Japanese here. My understanding is that so is a very common word. Okay, in Japanese they say so desu ka. Okay, then when I see my grandparents play Go or something, when they do something, they constantly say this word so desu ka. So I don't know, but this is a very common word. Thank you. And next one is Nathaniel, please.
Yeah, one of my favorite philosophers is Heidegger, and he has this thing where he talks about the they and idle chit chat. And so I was thinking maybe like it's so easy to get caught up in like what others think of us, or just, and talking about idle chit chat all the time. So maybe it's like a thing about not getting caught up in the they or something, or idle chit chat. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Claudia. Claudia?
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me? Like everything went side. Yes, I tend to agree with the second last speaker about non-attachment, and Alex, the first speaker, about putting this more into context, like Zen Buddhism, right? All the traits of a Zen master. What she said, Alex, appears to tally and agree with what the Zen master Hakum actually behaved, right? He was not. Don't forget, this is under the heading "The World and Its Temptations." Any other person would have been tempted to get angry, upset at the false accusations, right? He would have rejected the child as is and not agreed to take care of it. But him being a Zen master, he was not tempted to get angry or to act in a selfish manner or to try to defend his reputation, right? He was above that because of his enlightened state, right? Yeah, that's just what Alex and the other person said, the way they described it. It agrees with this particular master's behavior, right? And most people probably would not agree that it has anything to do with meditation, but how else would a master be able to behave in such a noble manner, right? He had to master the art of meditation, correct? We have to keep this into context, right? With the Zen Buddhism. So, yeah, that very interesting.
Thank you. Madeline, please.
Yes, I was just thinking as people were talking that we've been discussing this from the perspective of the Zen master and what it says about him and his attitude towards life. But it also speaks to what he has done for someone else, not in terms of taking care of the child, but in terms of giving the young mother her own internal space to go through a crisis of conscience. In other words, he didn't support her in her lie. He didn't deny her in her lie. He just left her in her lie to work it out on her own. For anyone who's been to any of the meetups on lying, we've had some very interesting discussions there about should you ever lie. Generally, the answer seems to be no. And so he has done something for someone else that goes far beyond taking care of someone else's child for a year. And he has kind of, rather than creating a controversy in the community by arguing, he has waited and let the young mother come forward on her own.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for this comment. So I think that he, in the utilitarian point of view, Hakuan probably saved the girl, the father, and save the baby, right? Probably that's his great contribution. He actually saved these three people. James.
Yeah, it comes down to whether the master, Hakuin, uses email or not. And the answer is, of course, but he doesn't use attachments.
Thank you. Alex, please.
Yeah, yes, hi. Actually, I have a question because I read another, I was watching another documentary about Buddhism in Thailand. And if you're in Thailand, you will see that people, as the monks, they were lined up in the morning and they will receive offerings from the believers. So what happened is the believers, the Buddhists, the people, they would be kneeling on the floor. Okay, they would be kneeling on the floor, and they were have a rice bowl, and the monks will walk through, and then the believers would give food from the rice bowl into the Buddhist monk's bowl. So this interaction actually is very important in concept of Buddhism, that the monks don't beg for food. It's actually the believer who wants to offer their offering, their belief to the monks, and that the relationship is not begging for food, is that the believers wish to worship the monks. I wouldn't say worship, but to sort of to I guess, in a way to help them, and to because they are the monks, they have more knowledge about life. So in that way, maybe the common believers could have a little bit more of sort of effect or receive knowledge from the monks. So that's what happens in Thailand. If you go through, you just see that the monks walk through, and the beliefs are on the floor and offering the food. And I think it's kind of it actually, I think it's similar to this, that the lady, it doesn't matter if she's beautiful or not, she is offering the child to the monk. Okay, she's begging the monk to basically take the child, and it's an offering. In the world of Buddhism, when somebody offers you something, it's a form of connection, of human connection. It's a form of understanding. So that, I think, that relationship is in this, and Hakuin knows that. Maybe he wants to help the girl, but more broadly, I think it's about the practice of Buddhism, of that sense of offering, and maybe for salvation. So I just want to bring that up that, you know, that could be the case here. And then, you know, so yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. You know, I think then when you are talking, I think yeah, something, yeah, because I think somebody asked the question why the girl mother choose Hakuan. You are probably Hakuan is the only one she can say, right? If somebody else, if she cannot tell the truth during that situation, she cannot tell the truth. She cannot say anybody else because they will deny. So only Hakuan can save her, save the baby, and save the boy. So probably
But what I'm saying
my
is from
understanding.
Hakuan's point of view, it's a more like an offering. It's not, I don't, yeah, I
Yes.
don't, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I got your point. Yeah, that begging is another thing. You know, we can talk about this one later because Buddhism has many varieties we can talk about. So James and Phil, please.
Yeah, this is my last comment. I gotta leave right away, but the idea that I like this idea of like the Reddit style discussion of truth and lying and lying. To me, that's extremely relevant and to the story. I think it's a pretension that truth exists in our minds. Truth is in language. You either say the truth or you don't say the truth, or you say something that is not true, either on purpose or accidentally. It's always something that is said between two people inside that connection. So the idea of, that's the idea of, is that so? The truth doesn't exist in anyone's mind. The truth is always expressed in language, and that's one of the major concepts, I think, behind this koan. But thank you, everybody. This was really a stimulating conversation for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, James. I think I also received a lot of stimulation from everybody. Thank you, everybody. Before I didn't think I would have received so many different ideas of this. So thank you. Phil, please.
I want to compliment, I think it was Madeline, about giving the girl the space to find the truth. I think that the reason why I'm complimenting her is this actually relates back to the first story about pouring the tea. Because the Zen master has developed an excess of reserves that he is able to absorb the emptiness in himself to allow the emptiness to create the clearing for the girl to, in a sense, come to the realization. In a different culture, such as a Catholic culture, when you're in that state, you are actually in purgatory until you go to the confessional, right? But this clearing provides a space, and so therefore he's actually doing something more than about himself. He's creating the clearing for himself, I mean for the girl, as well as the clearing for the baby, so that they have a way to exist within this clearing in a sense. So therefore, it's a very generous act to say, rather than, oh, I didn't do it. That actually would be the greater truth in some sense. It's not me. But the fact that the reserve allow for a kind of mild lie to exist, to create the clearing of possibilities, I think that's a great insight. It's important that we not only, as I say in my thing, throw away the excess so you have room for your own new information, but to have the excess to create the clearing for others. So that very thank you for that insight. That's a very, very important insight.
Thank you, Phil. James, please.
Yeah, I think the story demonstrates the Buddhist idea of how that in the world we live in illusion, and we live in all kinds of stories about what is truth and what is not true. And the Zen master realizes that. And that's why he's a Zen master, because he's beyond that. He's beyond the world of illusions, and he accepts whatever, there exists in the world of illusions, but he's not attached to any of them. And so this idea of a detachment from the world of illusions, and allows what happens to realize itself. And finally the truth comes out after a year or so, and that they realize what the truth is. And so, proving that the master, Zen master Hakuin, is the Zen master of what he aspires to be beyond this world of illusions, and he's living in that world that's detached from this illusion.
Yeah, thank you, James. But your comment, let me think about, like, if the girl never confess, so probably we have a lot of year reputation monk, and we still don't know. We just say that's so, Ron, please.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody actually brought this point up. If they did, I apologize. But when he says, "Is that so?" I think what he's asking is it true? And even when, the girl says after a year, so-and-so is the father, he says again, "Is that so?" In other words, is that true? Why do we accept that one as the truth? And there's another story, which I think most people are probably familiar with. The story has the title of, "Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing?" And I won't tell the story, but the gist of the story is all kinds of things happen, and some seem good and some seem bad. And the wise man is saying, "I don't know, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing?" I think, the message here might be never stop questioning, because we don't know how everything fits in the biggest picture. I think that could also be a takeaway from this story.
Thank you, Ron. Claudia and Patricia. Claudia, go, please.
Yes, the story also could be about, self-control, controlling the self. The ugly side of human nature, and that Zen Buddhism does teach that, right? Different forms of Buddhism, through meditation, right, or through reflection, and so on, and other techniques, right? And he certainly does display composure and calm, right, throughout the situation. And perhaps subconsciously he could have, I believe Buddhism does deal with reincarnation, right? Because this master is so used to doing good deeds, selfless deeds, that perhaps without even realizing it, just doing it automatically, he sacrificed his freedom to take care of a child that doesn't biologically belong to him, right? So that could be also another aspect of the story, or another motivation of why he behaved in that particular manner.
Thank you, Claudia. Patricia, please.
Thank you. So I'm just thinking about how much I wish I could be like him, not feeling like just so confident and composed and centered, and not feeling like I needed to defend myself. And thinking of the times that I have felt like I needed to defend myself, that I've been feeling like I've been falsely accused, and wishing in those situations that I had that composure to just say, "Is that so?" And thinking about how all my efforts to defend myself weren't necessarily productive. I don't think I ever convinced anyone of anything. It probably would have might have worked out just as well and been a lot simpler to just use those 3 words. I just love this story. And then the other thing I wanted to say was that as someone that was just speaking made me think about how it was like Socrates asking questions.
Thank you, Patricia. And thank you for that. I think that they also let me think about it, you know, how many times I try so hard to defend myself, okay? And it's not that kind of thing. It's just so small thing. And I spend so much effort to defend my own reputation. So thank you. James, please.
Yeah, I just want to reaffirm that this idea of skepticism in Buddhism, it goes back to Nagarjuna, right, who is famous for his skepticism, and that you have to constantly be questioning what the truth is, and this is what he does. Twice he was confronted, and twice he will be will come up with the same question. Is that so, right? Because you can't just be satisfied with what somebody tells you is the truth. Someone accuse you, or that we can never settle on be comfortable with a given truth. You always have to question it, and I think that's the point of this story also.
Thank you, James. So let's move on. Another beautiful girl. So Tazen and Akito, okay, 2 months. I assume Akito is the young one and Tazen is the old monk. Once traveling, a heavy rain falling, coming around bend, and met a lovely girl in a silk kimono, unable to cross the flooded intersection. Come on, girl, said Tazen at once, lifting her in his arm, and he carried her over the mud. Akito did not speak again until the night. I will assume Akito is a young monk, a teenager or something. When they reached a Lodging temple, then he no longer could restrain himself. We monks don't go near females, he told Tazen, especially not young and lovely ones. It is dangerous. Why did you do that? And then Tazen asked, I left the girl there. Are you still carrying her? So this one basics is talking, I think the author mentioned about the kind of related to the symposium. We know Socrates is not just like ascetic monk, or he also enjoy everything, but and during the enjoy thing, he doesn't have attachment to the thing, just like the monk Tazen. Anybody want to have a comment on this one? On this one? In, please.
All this talk about beautiful remind me of Lao Tzu that said, when the whole world knows what's beautiful, it becomes ugly.
Thank you, Pin. Claudia, fear and wrong.
Yeah, I just want to comment on the sentence. I left the girl there, said, Tanzan, are you still carrying her? What I think that means is that he left her. He didn't have any impure feelings towards the girl, right? It was just strictly to help her, and he didn't have any lustful, feelings or desires. However, yes, he actually carried her, but he asks, Akito, are you still carrying her? I think that it means like, are you thinking about her? Are you carrying her in your mind? It's an internal, something abstract, right? Like, are you thinking of her? Are you still thinking about her beauty, and so on? That's maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I'm interpreting this, because it was actually Tanzan who carried her, right? So why would he ask Aikido, are you still carrying her? I don't know what others think, but it's kind of
yeah. sorry, yeah, actually, another famous Zen Buddhism talking is you still can drink and eat meat as long as you don't have attachment to that. So, that's another way to think about it. That's, so just a reference, Japanese Buddhism, Japanese monk, not all, but in general, I'm not sure now, but during 100 years, they can have marriage, and they eat meat, they drink, and some smoke. So that's the different. So property, that's the reason, as long as you have no attachment. Who's next? Let's go to Phil.
I think this thing is about rules, right? Because the problem with rules is that it's a kind of general guidance, but it must be taken into account of the particular situation when it manifests itself. So therefore, the situation predicts when the rules should be relaxed or even broken, because the rules are just a man-made product to give you a kind of general direction. So he was not actually concerned about the younger monk is still carrying the girl. He's still carrying the rule in his head. That was the problem. He could not get away from the rule as it manifests in a situational world. And so therefore, he is actually trying to say, hey, relax. Forget about the program. Go with the situation as is necessary, because you always have to interpret the rule as it's fit for the situation.
Thank you. I think we have a lot of hands up. Sorry, I lost the order, so I have to go from the top to down. Okay, let's go from Madeline, Dear, Fred, Ron, and James. Madeline.
Yes, I was going to say something very much along the lines of what Phil just said. In English, we have a saying of when you're dwelling on something that someone else has done, like to you, or something that's going on, the saying is you're letting them live rent-free in your head. In other words, they're occupying your internal space. They may not even know it. They're off living their life, doing their own thing. And I had noticed the same thing Phil said, which was that Aikido is hung up on Tanzan's transgression of the rule. So whether or not Aikido in his mind has touched the young woman, what he's really hung up on is that his fellow monk has broken a rule, and in some way has kind of wronged the order or the mutual agreement of how things are done when you are monks together. And I believe they are supposed to be saying things to each other like this. It's supposed to be a community reinforcement situation. But that he can't let it go.
Thank you.
You do these returns, or? Hi, there's a couple returns here. No, I bought them for my son, and he didn't eat them, and then he left.
Okay.
She's
Leah,
breaking
please.
the rule.
That's fine.
Yeah. I really like this one. I think I took it as sometimes like in relationships, family relationships or whatever, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. I think sometimes there's disagreements and then there's forgiveness. And the one person thinks, oh, we're just moving on, everything's fine, everything's coming along. But then the other person will bring it up again. And we're thinking, oh, you're still going on that? In other words, are you still carrying that? And we've moved on, or sometimes I haven't moved on, vice versa. We're still stuck. And that's the way I read this one, that it's just, you need to just move, you have to let go, move on, forgive.
Thank you. Ron?
Yes, so my interpretation of this, or at least one meaning that can come out of it, is similar to, I'll give a simile. In the Bible, people say, that money is the root of all evil. Of course, when you look closer at the text, you find it actually says love of money is the root of all evil. So the meaning of that is that it's not the money, it's your attitude that is the problem. And I think that the same point is being made in this story. Yes, he picked up a female and carried her across the water and put her down. That's just an event, like money is an event. But the two disciples had different attitudes. The older monk was, here was a need, I met the need, and then I moved on. The younger monk maybe had a different attitude. Oh, we're forbidden to do that things because that'll arouse sexual desires, bad, yada, yada, yada. Different attitude. And I think the story is pointing out that acts in themselves can be very neutral, but if we bring attitudes to those acts, then they color them and create all kinds of problems. And that the ideal way for the master to act would be to act without any attitude, any attachment, any ideas, to simply perform the activity and move on, as we saw in the previous story with the master and the baby. That's my thoughts.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, this story represents the principle of detachment and attachment. Aikido definitely is suffering from the problem of attachment, right? He's attached to both the rule and to the image of the girl, right, in his head, and that's why he's says that Tarzan asks, why are you still carrying her, right? So Tarzan is Tanzan is practicing this principle of detachment. He's even though whatever he does, he does and forgets about it. He's no longer attached to what he did, and he's moving on. But Aikido is still attached to the rule and the idea of the girl, that was carried across the stream by Tarzan.
All right. Thank you, James. Look like we are going, for sure, we are going to run out of time, but so look like for the history, the other paper, I probably have to schedule another one, and I don't know everybody are so interested on the koan, but that's great, so we can bring more koan story to contemplate, and then be honest, I also learned a lot. Even the koan I'm familiar with, and I thought about that, but different people have a different reaction. It's very enlightening. Thank you. Claudia.
Yes, achieving, let's say, Buddhahood does not guarantee that you're not going to have these sexual feelings, right? You're not going to encounter temptations. Like it's implied in the last sentence that Tanzan, it's plausible that he was feeling something sexually, right? But he was able to overcome it, right? He, like James said earlier, he was able to detach himself, right? He didn't act upon those sexual urges or feelings, right? And then when he let the lady down, right after the trip, after he brought her to safety, he quickly forgot about it, right? He was no longer, the feeling kind of like disappeared. However, his partner, Aikido, who possibly could have still had some sexual feelings, because he did describe her as young and lovely. He did notice those traits about the young lady. He still thought about it. He brought it up. So he was, I guess, less detached than his Tanzan, right? That's the implication in these in this story, right? He is unable to let go.
Yeah. Thank you. I think okay. Who asked the question at the beginning is want to talk about the religion in Western, is that fail to reduce Buddhism as a religion, become in the westernized. That's the time we can discuss this question. Is that
Madeline,
Leah
Madeline
or
asked
who
that
asked?
question.
Oh, Madeline asked this, but do you want to ask again? Are you still here?
Yes, I'm still here. Basically, you just said it.
Okay.
In the articles that I read, the two that you had put up there, in one of them in particular, neither of them really discussed the fact that here in the West, people tend to regard Chan or Zen as a religion that has been stripped to its true essence without the extraneous parts. But in fact, from what I have read, it is the case that many Buddhists who are fully practicing Buddhists embedded in a culture of Buddhism regard Chan or Zen as being really kind of out there. Not so much a pure form as just kind of this weird thing off to one side. I think of it as if, I assume everyone here has heard of Quaker meetings, the Society of Friends, where it's a Protestant sect where they sit quietly in silence and people will just occasionally speak as they feel moved to by the Spirit. So it's as if Quakerism got exported to other cultures and everyone regarded that as Christianity, and that all the other forms of Christianity were sort of superfluous and had too much other stuff going on.
Okay, thank you. Anybody want to comment on this one? And because just like to remind again, everybody, today we just talk about Zen and Zen it being, I think in the second paper, we don't have a chance to discuss. I will reschedule a time to discuss the second paper, which we talk about the history and basic. Madeline asked the question she like to talk about is on the other paper. Okay, so basically, I think the paper is pretty good. Discuss how does Buddhism travel to West. Okay, so in my point of view, Buddhism start from India, then go to China. In China, take a totally different form, and then when Buddhism moved to Japan, okay, also get a totally different form than the Chinese Buddhism. Same thing, the Zen also, according to legend, developed from India, but then travel to China and also get the development. And the Zen go to Japan, it's also take a different form. And when Suzuki traveled to America, he introduced Zen. He kind of not focused on some other important teaching like samsara, nirvana, this kind of, he didn't teach on this. And what we get Buddhism today, basics is a lot is from Suzuki's point of view of Zen, of Buddhism. So it doesn't replace all truths, okay? Again, today have in many places, people practice in different forms of Buddhism, and that's probably we have to reschedule, and next time we can discuss. So anybody want to respond on this question or this issue? No? Probably
actually,
in the mind of Koan. Okay, while you are thinking about,
I think there are hands up, but I don't know.
yeah.
Are we
Somebody
discussing,
Oh, there's so many hands up. Sorry. I didn't. I totally misread the screen. So okay,
we're discussing Madeline's question.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, so let's go.
It seems it's pretty confused here in the U.S. and in Europe that it is still the case that the majority of Buddhists are Mahayana Buddhists from India. In the US, I think there are two phases. Buddhism's popularity in the West started with the Beat generation, with, say, Allen Ginsberg and sort of a native son poet, very good poet, Gary Snyder in the Northwest, and a number of others in the Beat generation adhered strongly to Zen Buddhism. But more recently, the popularity is with the Dalai Lama, who is not a Zen Buddhist. He is a Tibetan Buddhist, and those are different. Nevertheless, it's pretty confused here because my guess is if you ask the majority of people who is the major proponent or spokesman for Zen Buddhism, they would say the Dalai Lama, which is not in fact the case. So and in total, both Zen and Tibetan Buddhism together are a minority of Buddhism in the world. So yeah, I think we have to draw a distinction. Dalai Lama is not a Zen Buddhist. There are different sects, and Tibetan Buddhism is more religious. In fact, it's suffused with religion, gods, and so forth. And you could argue that Zen is definitely less infused with religious overtones. So it's kind of confused, but I think that's my take on Madeline's question. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a complicated, and then just like Alex mentioned about the situation in Thailand, that's a totally different story, you know. So we will from time to time we will come back to this subject, and I just like in my personal view, Buddhism is not a religion because it's many different forms. Let's go from a few hands. Fear, Pin, and Ron, please.
Yeah, I don't find it to be a problem because I believe that all religions have sects. This is a narrow sect, but it fulfills a certain niche of understanding. That's perfectly fine. If Zen was to totalize itself to all of Buddhism, then it would be a problem. Simply because there are many people either because they're incapable or they don't want to abandon other things that the culture have to offer besides just the kind of a funny kind of intellect, then it would have become a problem because then you would abandon the culture that is in and the rituals as necessary to hold the culture together. So these other things are very important. But if you think of it as a sect, in fact, in some ways almost not Buddhism, but it is a sect. You know, like even the Catholic Church, they have the Dominicans, they have the Franciscans, they have all sorts of sects. Now, this is more specialized than even those sects, but so just, you know, like let it go because the main body is not Zen.
Thank you. Pin, please.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to the answers to Madeline's question. If I understand correctly, I think you're asking how representative is Zen Buddhism, and is it really some like the school that captures the bare essence? Yeah, just my understanding, even if you only look at homegrown Chinese schools of Buddhism, there are many, and Zen Buddhism is just one of many. There's a Clean Earth, Jintu. There's several others, Huayan, Tiantai, Weishi, and they're all, you know, Zen Buddhism is not even the biggest one. So, and I'm sure if you talk to those other schools, they will say they are the ones, each one will say, we capture the essence. So yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's there's no two Buddhism talk about the same Buddhism. Ron, please.
Yeah, as I remember Madeline's question from the beginning, I think she asked why Zen was so popular, and also raised the question of why there was this willingness to let go of a lot of the rituals and the theology and all the practices and just make it nice and simple. My thought about that, because I follow an Indian philosophy, which does the same thing. You know, Indian philosophy has amazing amount of traditions, et cetera, but there's a modern form of non-dual Indian philosophy called direct path, where you leave aside lots of stuff and you just go right to the heart of the matter. You know, you ask the question, who am I? And it's very appealing to a lot of the Western modern mind. And I think part of that is that historically, most of the time, all of these traditions required pretty much some kind of a lifetime, you know, dedication to it. It was taken as a very serious thing, and very few people actually, you know, percentage-wise, would willing to trod that path. I think in the modern world, with access to so much, you know, knowledge about all these paths, very many more people, much greater percentage of the people are interested. But as you go up with all these percentages of people, most of them are not willing to dedicate so much of their life to this one area. So basically they want, you know, a quick fix. You know, so any tradition that offers a quick fix says, oh, you don't have to go through all of these, you know, rituals and years of study, you know, just have this aha moment, you know, and that's all you need. It's very appealing. So I think that could be part of the reason that a lot of these, you know, there are so many, you know, people out there today, you know, with quick fixes, you know, power of now, or, you know, et cetera, and it's very appealing because who wants to do a lot of hard work if you can just, you know, get zapped, you know, by a feather or something and have realization. So I think the fact that, you know, it's been open to such a wider audience has, you know, played a part in some of these traditions being so attractive.
Thank you. Who's next? James, please.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the basic difference between Zen and other forms of Buddhism is that, you know, there's a long tradition of religious Buddhism, right? Which has all the trappings of religious rituals and scriptures and things like that. And I think it's possible to sift through that and get, you know, what the essence of Zen is. And I think Suzuki introduces that. And also following that tradition, Alan Watts has written a lot and gave a lot of lectures, which you can listen to on the YouTube probably, and get to understand what you know. And he talks about the religious background too, but he really focuses on the what the essence of Zen is, and it basically has nothing to do with any kind of religious trappings and so forth. But it gets down to the nitty gritty of what Zen is, and I kind of trust that. And of course, someone mentioned Dalai Lama and so forth. These other, because I think they carry some essence of what, but they don't seem to focus that much on the meditation practices and things like that. And I think Zen involves a lot of you know, the actual practice of meditation, you know, so that's where I'm, you know, coming from. That. Just I wanted to share that.
Thank you for your view. Thank you, Claudia, and yeah, Claudia first, then Alex, Phil. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm kind of new to Zen Buddhism. I'm not too familiar, but if it's anything like traditional Buddhism, um, then it can easily be argued that it's also a religion, not just a philosophy, like a way of life, right? Because traditional Buddhism does have the faith and salvation type elements that, like, say, the monotheistic religions have, right? For example, if you don't have faith in the Buddha, or you don't have faith in the doctrine of Buddhism, like impermanence, emptiness, then you cannot reach enlightenment, or which is synonymous with salvation, right? So, right, faith and salvation. So it can easily be argued that it's also a religion, right? But like I said, I'm not very familiar with Buddhism, and it does seem to have a supernatural elements as well because of the reincarnation, which can easily be interpreted as like some type of afterlife, right? Because it survives the physical death of the body, right? Like Christianity, the soul survives the physical death of the body. So you see an analogy there, similarities. So it's very tricky question. Is it a philosophy or is it a religion? But if Zen Buddhism is like traditional Buddhism, then it can also be a religion as well as a philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex, please.
Hi, actually, this is more for the next meeting. I would like to, because I was reading Buddha Travels West, the article, right? I think there's one thing, I have a little issue with it because it missed the importance of the discovery of the Buddhist cave in Dunghwan. And that is the first, I believe, the first discovery of all the Buddhist writings and the paintings and the statues by either Englishman or Frenchman. I think both of them were able to get to the caves, and it was such an important discovery. When they took it back to Britain, one of the most important findings was the Diamond Sutra, which is basically the one of the most valuable findings from the caves because it was the first translation and probably the best translation. So I know that it talk about some of the translations in this article that you want us to read, but maybe we can also talk a little bit about the influence and importance of the Dunghwan discovery in the Western world. Thank you.
Thank you for the suggestion. Yeah, that's another thing we probably need to touch on there. But Dunhuang probably okay. Let me think about it. Thank you, Alex, for the suggestion. So just remind everybody, it's 3 o'clock. I will stay here for a while. And Phil, please.
Yeah, I think it was also a cultural development in this sense. You cannot talk about Zen Buddhism without talking about Taoism. And it has to come out of China because Taoism is really the alternative philosophy to Confucianism. And in a sense, it was much more philosophical in a way. Well, both Taoism and Confucianism was philosophical, except Confucianism is a little bit more involved with ritual and all that. So in that sense, I think a lot of the ideas, to me, in general, about emptiness, about negative space, all of that stuff was embedded in Taoism already. So now it went to Japan, which is sort of interesting because the Japanese adapted the Chinese culture to a great degree. So even if they didn't adapt Taoism, I don't know whether they did or did not, but even if they didn't, so much of the culture, for instance, in the paintings, in the the literati paintings, had Taoist ideas that it had to be, in a sense, embedded in Japanese culture as well. So Zen becomes, in a sense, the replacement for Taoism in Japan. So therefore, to leave out Taoism as a organic growth into Buddhism is, well, it's kind of like missing the big boat. And I think because of that, it had its own life. And because Taoism essentially was much more metaphysical philosophy and barely a religion, although there are religious Taoists, I understand that. But nonetheless, and I think the fact that it revived in the blossom in the West is because people were also interested in Taoism. So why wouldn't they be interested in Zen? And so therefore, in a sense, it's a natural development because it has something to do with this concern with the metaphysics rather than rituals. So, it's just natural that it would be that way.
Thank you, Phil. I think in a few weeks, we will talk about Dao De Jing. Okay, so yeah, who's next? Phil, then Madeline, Claudia, and Alina. Madeline?
Oh, okay. Thanks. On Wednesday, this Wednesday, through 52 Living Ideas and also the Philadelphia Thinking Society, at Comprehensivist Wednesdays, there's going to be a discussion of a video on YouTube. And a good part of the video, it's about knowledge transmission and how we interpret things. A substantial portion of the video is this woman talking about when the Jesuits went to China and saw Chinese art and how they interpreted what they saw as these things that were done with very little skill, none of the mastery of perspective, all these blank spaces. And then it shows the Jesuit repaintings of the Chinese paintings using perspective lines and everything. And it actually is one of the more fascinating periods in art history, if you're into art history, which is how the Chinese adapted some use of perspective in their art. And that then traveled back to Europe with the Dutch and got taken up by people like Van Gogh and what's his name, Gauguin. So it kind of went back and forth, and it's two entirely different worldviews, really. I think it's the European ability to separate things out, to have music, say that music only focuses on a lyric line instead of the polyphony that's characteristic of most world music, or for art to abstract things like that. So anyway, that'll be Wednesday evening.
Thank you. Okay, so okay, David. David, you haven't spoke yet, so I think you spoke for. Please, yeah. Dave, yeah, please. You are muted.
I have all kinds of problems. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. Just a comment, and I know I'm pretty demanding, but I came to listen to learn about Asian philosophy. And I suspect to hear it from you, an Asian person, and Ping and Alex that know a lot about this. And I can understand a few maybe questions from some Westerners, and but so many times I get that kind of disgusted about a Westerner telling me what their comment is or whether they think I can empty my brain or not. And it's, it's not information, it's just opinion. And you're not getting your time to cover. So I don't know how we can do this tactfully to control the time or control, please questions, but not opinion or not, because, yeah, anyway. But
yeah, I fully understand.